That's me in
in the
the
corner,
corner. That's me in the spotlight, losing
losing
my
my
religion.
religion. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na.
So, losing our religion. It's funny because, obviously we met. I say we met in high school because that's sort of true, but actually that's not completely honest. Because we met before I was in high school. I was in eighth
Oh,
grade, and you
true.
were in ninth grade. So
You
I
were
was
a
in junior
baby.
high. You were in high school. Where we met was church.
Church. Yes, we did.
We met at church. And after 27 years of marriage, that our relationship has always at least been affected by our relationship with that church.
Yeah.
The religion, right? Our parents' religion.
Yep.
And so much of our marriage now has certainly been a part of deconstructing religion.
Hmm.
And having a conversation with a good friend. We just recently connected with high school friends. We had a 30th
Plus one.
reunion, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And since we were in high school together, we did a joint kind of 30 and 31-year reunion and saw a few friends, and it was interesting um, to kind of reflect on who you were, who you are, and then how you were perceived. And that's
Yeah, yeah.
something that the reunion kind of gave
Hmm.
me anyway. I shouldn't speak for you, um, but there was during a conversation with a good friend, a person I adore. Um, discussions of religion always comes up with high school friends because they at least knew us to be a part of that church,
Hmm.
that religion, and so they're always interested. Well, so anyway, we were having a conversation, and then it became there was a word that kept getting used, which was belief in God, and I realized at one point my friend and I weren't having the same conversation because we don't have a shared concept of what belief and what God is.
Mm.
And it's so annoying, right? It seems like so legalistic. Well, it depends on what the meaning of is. But with words like believe and God and religion, church, um, Jesus, it matters. What would explain that, right?
Hmm.
And I told him because he asked about my beliefs. Well, my beliefs in you, I said I don't have beliefs. That's kind of where you and I differ. I don't really believe in things. I have ideas. I have some thoughts. I've worked out a few things. I have some suggestions. I have some hypothesis. I have some submissions. But it's right, my favorite. As I said at one point, my God is Alanis Morissette because in the movie Dogma, she's God.
She's God. Quite literally, plays God.
She's God. Just one more myth in
Oh.
the Christocentric multiverse that is Christendom and Jesus and the carpenter and the storyteller, right? But there's a scene in it where the Chris Rock character is explaining Jesus, and he says just this: the dude listened and asked questions more than preached. And that he was interested in ideas, not beliefs, because beliefs are something that you die for.
Hmm.
Beliefs are something that you kill for. Ideas can be expressed. Ideas can be changed. Ideas can be altered. Ideas can be added to.
Hmm.
And so, do I have a belief in God? I don't understand the question. Um, I have a belief in deconstructing religion.
Hmm.
I have a belief in deconstructing gods, but the deconstruction isn't to maintain this, be an atheist, prove atheism, because I'm not an atheist. It's a search for God. That's what deconstructing religion is. And something we did, I think, is it was easy to say, okay, where is God not?
Yeah.
Where does not God reside? And then it was easy to pivot and say, okay, not that. That's easy, not love.
Yeah.
And then as we pivoted and moved on to different philosophies and different lifestyles and different cultures and different people, we saw the same issues. And, a friend asked us, or an old high school friend, so why did you leave your parents' religion? I said, honestly, it's the least interesting topic. It's the least interesting thing about me. It's really, oh no, I think it's very interesting, right? Because they care a lot about this group of people because they have a lot of influence. Yeah,
takes over identity.
There's a lot of combat, right? Yeah. Social, emotional combat amongst these groups. And I said, well, you become an adult and you start to learn that an organization that identifies as religion, its very theology and its practice is to tolerate child abuse and to cover up for the child abuse. And so when you see the group to which you belong does that, it's really important to know that whether or not the God that they say is God, and that if you don't follow their rules, that God will punish you to hell or reward you with heaven. Yeah. You go ahead and they call it Pascal's wager, right? We'll bet that there is a God. You go ahead and bet there is a God, and I bet that's a God. So in order to do that, I have to judge whether or not your God is who you claim it is, and whether or not that the creator of the universe, the cosmic arbiter of all, the the great and the unfathomable, is he cool with the way you guys deal with child abuse? Yeah. Turns out my search led me to this benevolent God that are in these stories, in these books, these New Testament, Old Testament, and others, turns out was real clear on the topic of child abuse. In fact, every story is really and should be viewed filtered through a lens of duty to children. From Adam and Eve to Cain and Abel, to Abraham, to Joseph, to all the prophets of the Old Testament, to Jesus, to the Gospels, all the way to the garden and the cross. Now, I don't mess with Paul. That's another. That's a debate for other scholars. Let's just stop at the Gospels and what supposedly the man said. That dude was clear about child protection, and that those that would dare speak for God, would dare claim to have knowledge about God, would dare assert authority in the name of God, that they'd be pretty good at protecting children and at least stopping abuse and minimizing abuse. That's really what that scripture says. It's if anyone who is to offend one of these, do violence to, betray, commit a crime against That's what that means. It wasn't just ignore, which is bad enough. So the first thing, so as I tell people, that was the first thing. Turns out the God of the universe isn't cool with child abuse. This institution really is. In fact, their theology, their pedagogy, their policies, their legal structure is built in a failure to minimize the abuse that children experience. So it was easy to say, well, that God
Yeah.
either doesn't exist, but I'm okay to take them at their word and say, you know what, you have very spiritual experiences that prove the knowledge that you claim to have about this God. And when you understand divine story, you get that there are all types of gods, and some of them are demon gods. So I accept that the God that is over the hearts and minds of the um, people of our parents' religion simply worship a demon god.
Yeah.
Not that their God doesn't exist. I'm
Yep.
saying your God ain't cool,
Yeah.
and
He ain't cool.
your God's exploits women and abuses children, and your system
and allows for a secretive.
your system tends to justify it. So yeah, not that,
Not cool.
not that.
Yeah.
And that's what deconstructing religion is. I didn't deconstruct God, I just pivoted. And then I pivoted and like, oh, okay, here's another religion with my friends, right? These are my buddy who, do you believe in God? Which um I felt pity for him when he asked about evolution. Like, okay,
Yeah.
because I said basically, science and religion isn't, it doesn't have to be. And he said, well, if there's evolution, then why are there man and still apes today?
Yep.
And I looked at him, and he must have seen the
Oh goodness.
the shock, the reaction. I said, oh no, but that's not how it works. I mean, you went to, like, we went to school together. Like, remember, like, biology in early, like, there's different classifications of animals, and then one of them's mammals.
Yeah.
And we're within mammals, and they're a bunch of animals, right? Like dogs, for example, is in canine, and they're like with wolves and stuff, right? Yeah. Well, there was wolves that essentially evolved, changed, developed into dogs, right? Now, that's not a great example because wolves and dogs still exist. But if you go back for humans, see, we're all in the ape family.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, the apes, right? Not monkeys, but apes especially, right? Chimpanzee. These are all within our general family, but we're not the same species.
I can't believe.
At some point, there was within the ape family another thing that was, Australopithecus and like Homo.
He must have been like, huh?
Right, these words, right, like Neanderthals and these, right? And we know because we found them, and we can see the progression of the brain.
Learned a thing.
So when we say we descended from apes, what we mean is our cousins, who are a different species of ape, and us, we came from the same common ancestor back there.
Whew, you must have blown his mind.
Well, he didn't have a retort, and I realized, bro, we went to the same school. We're in our 40s. You're a relatively educated man. You went to college, and you think about these things clearly because you had that one loaded. Yeah. But so I pursued. Then I'll just say, kept searching for God in different places and different institutions and among different sects. Yeah. And it turns out they all had a similar problem of tolerating child abuse.
Crazy.
And the ones that did better about here's what I learned in my journey and my search for God, because I feel like we found God
Yeah.
finally
Yeah.
in all this deconstruction. We found where there's a connection between tolerating child abuse, and that connection is dogma. And the more dogmas that exist within a people,
Mhm.
and this includes secular people, the more dogmas that exist, the more likely they are to tolerate child abuse within their people, because it's their dogmas that matter more than the mind of a child.
Mhm.
And so they sacrifice
Mhm.
their children to their dogmas, to their beliefs, to their thoughts in their heads, just like Abraham
Mhm.
did. And so these stories, after deconstructing religion, I realized a couple things. First of all divine origin stories are the same,
Yeah.
right?
They're very, yeah.
Hindu, Buddha, classical, like Homer, and the,
Mhm.
and the and the Greek and Roman gods, um, um, Old Testament prophecy, New Testament Jesus, Islam, Quran, Torah, all these stories, right? Especially of the majors,
Yeah.
they're all telling the same
Telling the
story.
same story.
We don't understand the story too often because we're really bad with rhetoric. We're really bad
Very
with
true.
storytelling. And we take things too literally, and we take it too like piously. It's like, and it makes more sense. All these stories make more sense if you view it through the lens of a comedy, like an absurdist story more. And that's a form of a comedy, right? As an absurdist, it's so
Yeah.
absurd, right? The classic, if you're into your art, if you're into your literature, Orpheus in the Underworld is a
Mhm.
great example of a divine story that was about the classical period and the Greek gods and Homer's story. I think it's Homer, and it's a comedy. It's a little dirty. It's a little bawdy. It's
Mhm.
very graphic. It's absurd. And we just inject on like the Romans or the Greek, the classical period, like they were all theists, theists, like modern postmodern Christian
Mm.
monotheism, and they're not.
No. Yeah, they're not.
Hinduism, Buddhism, it's not theistic. It
No.
is, and from the beginning, these stories are meant to communicate deism
Mhm.
as a philosophy, as just a concept.
Yeah.
And it's what's lacking when you look at these stories of parenting, these stories of child development,
Mhm.
which all great existential stories are, right? Don Quixote, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
They're the reason why there's the character of childhood is so prominent. Luke, I'm your father, right? These archetypes. There's only so many stories that can be told, that are told, that have been told.
Yeah.
And it's a comedy, and it's usually got a twist. So the people that you think are the superheroes or the super good guys, when you realize they're either the dorks, the cowards, or the losers. And sometimes they're the bad guys.
Mm.
But a lot of times they're the dopes, the people that are presented as the good guys, because it's
Yeah.
funny. It's meant to tell a
To
story. It's
tell a
not. It's not
story.
meant to spoon feed. It's meant for you to
Mhm. Yeah.
figure it out,
Yeah.
right? And so the problem, so much problem with religious speech, with religious commentary and discussions, is they have conflated God, deity, the divine source, energy, love, with ritual,
Mhm.
with mythology, and with
Yeah.
theology. And everyone is claiming ownership over divinity.
Yeah.
And it really just means they want to control other people through their
Yeah. Through their
dogmas.
dogmas. Yeah.
And so we'll tell the story about what we deconstructed with specificity and the institution with facts and circumstances and names.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more interesting, I think, to start with what we found, and what we found was God.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really easy, really, for me as a dad, as a partner, as a parent, was to learn from my wife in how to parent lovingly with boundaries and nurturing and empowering. And so love is not my religion. Sorry, I said it last time. I think that's Lenny. I meant Lenny Kravitz. For some
Oh.
reason, I thought it was Lenny, right? It's Ziggy Marley. Sorry, Ziggy.
Oh.
Love is my religion.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Love.
But love isn't my religion.
Mm-hmm.
Parenting became my religion.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And
Yep.
so our children, DMT, right, their initials,
Mm-hmm.
are both individually and collectively our God.
Yes.
And that's deism.
Yeah.
To say there is this being, D, this being, MT, and they are important and unique and have priority.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also this being together, children.
Yeah.
And then there's this organism, family, and this organism, marriage.
Yeah.
And how do all these beings stay interdependent, say themselves, but still blend and
And connect.
bond
Yeah.
and communicate and connect?
Yeah.
And so when I say DMT is my God, I mean it.
Yeah.
It's literal, it's
Me too.
metaphorical and literal, and it communicates something philosophically about love.
Mm-hmm.
Because as far as I can tell, in going through all the religions and in going through all the philosophies and systems of thinking, the best human expression of love that humans have is in the parent-child relationship. They are where we experience our most acute trauma and suffering,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully some of our most impactful feelings of
Yeah.
connection and love.
Static love. Yeah.
And it impacts so much of our mind, our cognition, our metabolism, our gut health.
Mm-hmm.
It 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 impacts it.
So true.
So we'll look at child development versus child abuse and the systems of thinking that both empower, enhance, and make accessible the development, the creative, and those that cause disconnection, disease, and dissatisfaction. And we can look at through a lens of parenting.
Yeah.
Suffer the children,
To come unto me.
or the children suffer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's some practical stuff. Parents, kids, it's the space between. We focus so much on the major events, the major emotions, and the major successes and happiness, right? We're in this stage of where the only thing we fixate on is when there is high emotion, high feeling, high
Mm.
intensity, high stimulation. Life, relationships, health, wellness, longevity is in the space between, in the boring times. And often kids, if you've got a lot of boring times, then that means you were pretty safe and pretty secure. So celebrate the boring, celebrate the space between. Now, here's some physiological space between techniques. First, think about that. Think about the space between. And remember those experiences, because usually those are positive too.
Mm-hmm.
And take care of the space between your teeth and the space between your toes. Too many people. We're not clean enough, guys. Your hygiene sucks. You parents have failed your children in helping them take care of their bodies. Okay, boys, you have to wipe better. You just have to take care of your butthole. It's ridiculous what I'm hearing and what you guys think gay is, and just stop it. Take care of your butthole. Wipe completely. Okay, floss, brush your teeth, and make sure you're wiggling your toes and spacing your toes, especially as you get older.
Yeah.
Your feet are collapsing. You're going to have pain. You're going to have neurological
Balance.
pain.
Yeah.
Your teeth impact your gut biomes. Your toes impact your nervous system, your nerves, how you feel, how you perceive. Do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the space in between, because that's where the magic happens. The magic of parenting is being aware of, conscious of, and intentional in creating a good space for your children so they can have boring space betweens or something like that.
Or something like that.